So, Jilly Juice mentality is all about making the connections. Okay. So we studied everything on its own without drawing the parallels and drawing the connections. And that's why we as Jilly Juicers like bring up data that has been substantiated by academia, by the PhDs that study the black and white laws of life and death. Forget the man-made law and the hypocritical oath, but you can get the black and white laws from academia if you actually dig. So I'm going to substantiate the whole immortal cells and salt. Okay, so why are Henrietta Lacks immortal cells, the germline cells, why are they immortal? Why are they different than other cells in the body? And the reasoning, when you look at how they're able to neutralize cancer, is the amount of salts, the sodium nanoparticles within those tumor cells. And all tumor cells and cancer cells have a lot more sodium chloride nanoparticles because it is a new viral entity that serves to accelerate replication because it's, wanting to live. Life, you can't stop life. That's why none of the therapeutics work, because life is life. Life is painful. And if you're not supporting life correctly, and if you're not adhering to the blueprint of the predominant, viral programming in the body, then yes, it's going to keep continuing to regenerate until you satisfy its needs. And so there's another substantiation that yes, if academia and PhD scientists study these tumor cells and then figure out how to cure cancer using salts, well, the reason why the salt cures the cancer because there's a lot more sodium nanoparticles in a tumor cell versus the other cells. Yes, there's some sodium in the other cells, but not as much. And so that's why when you drink either salt water or Jilly Juice or anything, highly preservative with salt in it, that it would neutralize the cancer cells as well as the tumor cells and also help your other cells accelerate their growth. But at least the other cells that are different algorithms in the tumor cells are your main programming. The tumor cells are the anomalous programming. Those are the anomalous blueprints that are in your body that is sending the anomalous messages to your immune system to then start creating growth. And this is why you have weird growths in your body. This is why you have weird programming in your body, weird messages sent to your immune system. And so that's what, that really what stems from cancer, disease, chronic illness, and all autoimmune disorders is the fact that a person doesn't accelerate their energy with the sodium chloride to kick out the anomalous viral programming and also help it adapt to that new programming as well. And so right there, I didn't think to make that connection until I studied and figured out that the salt is a cure for cancer. You'll never see that. You'll never see that in the mainstream. Because remember, everything is done intravenously. When everything is done intravenously, they target specific areas or it goes straight to the bloodstream. And it doesn't go through your first and second lines of defense because your second brain is your gut. So if you actually took electrolytes in the hospital through your gut, it would take away every single revenue stream from the hospital. See, and that's why I'm like, okay, because I knew that, electrolytes, which is basically saline and glucose in a bag, is how they stabilize patients who are dehydrated. Well, obviously, but you should take it through your mouth, not through your freaking vein. Oh, but when you go through your vein, it goes directly. Well, if you did it through the stomach and allow the body to do what it needs to do, you would actually train the body to be able to do things on its own without having to turn to medical holistic system. And so that's why, ventilators are being used on people because they've never figured out how to use their diaphragm. I know people who I hardly ever hear sneeze or cough or have a stuffy nose. And I'm just like, how does that happen? Oh, because they're not expelling. And so that's why you see, yes, the dad bods, yes. That's why you see the obesity. That's why you see people are very swollen because they're not expelling. Okay, they're holding everything in. And then when things go totally awry, then they have to turn to the medical holistic system to then go and do intermediaries. And when you have to turn to somebody else to do a function that you should be able to do on your own, you are now dependent. Not independent, but you're dependent. And so look up Henrietta Lacks. She actually was, they took some of her tumor cells without her family's permission and studied it for oncology. Why are they studying it for oncology? Because they want to figure out how to apply chemotherapy, how to apply radiation without completely destroying the cell, but keep it sort of alive, but not enough to where it causes any energy. How much chemotherapy and radiation can an immortal cell handle before it actually dies off? That's what oncology does. It figures out how much of an antibiotic like chemotherapy, radiation, or cannabis, or any other antibiotic type of quality, how much can a living cell withstand before it finally just gives up? And that right there tells you exactly the medical holistic industry, which is why you're seeing everybody react to these viruses, because they don't have what it takes. And some will, instead of pass away from the thermodynamics from the viruses, they will just contract the cancer, disease, and chronic illness from the viruses, because at least that's their insurance policy. But I said that you have your first lines of defense, you have your second lines of defense, and you have your third lines of defense. You don't want to ever hit the third lines of defense. And right now, everyone is hitting their third lines of defense because their first lines and their second lines have been relatively disabled. And when you disable your first and second lines of defense, then your body has no choice but then to contract, if you're lucky, the cancer, disease, and chronic illness. But, with how fast these viruses are replicating, how aggressive these viruses are, not many people are going to have the luxury. I mean, I just, found out that someone that I knew passed away from when I was in my 20s, and I kind of peripherally kept in touch with him. And, he applied all the methodologies of the holistic allopathic, exercise and dieting and then finally I think he gave up, because I think the last few pictures that I saw, seen of him on Facebook on his timeline, and he became very swollen. I think he finally just gave up and realized that, health is not through freaking exercise. Health is not through dieting. Health is not through all the things that he partook in, the medical holistic, the therapeutics, because yes, he also took the therapeutic. Not saying that did anything to him. I think, so many factors. But regardless, the system set him up to fail. The system is setting all of you up to fail. And then they admonish you for not taking part in their therapeutics. Well, maybe, yes, doing the therapeutics will lessen the aggressive thermodynamics through your mouth, okay, through your respiratory system. But you should already have, the ability to be able to expel on your own without doing exercise, without doing meditation and breathing crap that you see in the medical holistic, all the different therapies. You should be able to expel on your own through your mouth, through your nose, through all the different orifices, as well as through your colon. And they don't want you to do that. That's why everything is intravenous. That is why everything is intravenous. So it bypasses your first lines of defense. Because when you don't use something like your first lines of defense, and you're so afraid of your second lines, which is your barfing and your diarrhea and fever, then that will also be atrophied as well over time as you train your body not to use those parts of your systems, your defense systems. When you're taking out organs, when you're taking out your thyroid, when you're taking out your tonsils, when you're taking out all these different things out of your body, you're lessening your body's ability to defend itself on its own. And then you have no choice but to go use the system. And that's exactly how things are being set up. And so this is why I've been, such a rabid dog right now around the doctors and the nurses and all the holistic professionals that fancy themselves to be alternative when they're really not. And anyone credentialed in the medical holistic, I have absolutely no respect for anyone in that industry. Yeah, if you don't know about J juice and the J juice mentality, then yeah, you can claim ignorance. But if you know about the J juice mentality, then you are part of the problem, siphoning the energy, harvesting energy, and exploiting those that don't know any better, and you won't give them this information. I know it, you know it. Okay, you can, claim that, yeah, you're against the therapeutics, but I'm sorry, you can't speak out of both sides of your mouth. You work in an industry, taking a paycheck from an industry that you helped sustain the weaknesses in your family and friends. So you don't have the luxury to be anti-therapeutic when that's all you do is apply therapies. And so, and you'll probably use J juice as a cure as well. So you can keep doing what you're doing until the J juice turns you into a pickle or turns you into beef jerky. And so right there, we know, because look, there was a shark that they found that lived to be like 300 or still living to be, 300 or 400 years old. Very rare do sharks get tumors and cancer. But when you're in salt water and you have enough salt in you and enough fatty acid and enough water in you and enough amino acids, prohormones, and minerals, because that's what makes up a human. Yeah, I mean, indefinite life or maintaining existence is possible. And then you're adapting to the conditions of your environment. I feel the less bloat. I feel freaking strong. Lot of mental clarity. I know when a new variant's in the environment, I need to sleep or I feel, a little jittery. But that's really it. When I know, there's a new variant, the electricity is high. Emotions run high. But that's kind of what's going on right now is people are living off their emotions. And so those that are so underweight and are part of the holistic world because they have deprived themselves of meat and milk and cheese and all the necessary foods because they are politically starving themselves, then they're living on the emotion. Those are the empaths. And then also, too, the other side of it, then you have the aggressive people with so much of the hormones surging in their body with no release that they're very aggressive and easily triggered. And so, yeah, you see our whole society is living off their emotions, but not living off the food because they either have so much excess of the food that they had because they don't know how to release, or they're depriving themselves of food. And so they don't have really, a lot of diverse nutrition in their body. And so, yeah, guess what? They're living off of the emotions. No different than the drug addicts living off the emotions. They're like, how did drug addicts live longer than this person who died from natural causes? Well, because yes, you can live off of some of these drugs for a while. But then you look at people who have taken drugs for a long ass time and they kind of look like Dracula. Okay? And I'm telling you, if a person really ages to 90 to 100 years old, and of course they're taking part in the medical holistic industry, they do look like the Crypt Keeper. You could see very distinct universal features on people who are depleting before your very eyes. They lose the fat in their skin, they lose the collagen, their skin is thin and papery, their noses get, more prominent, you see the hollowness in their eyes. It's like we are experiencing World War II in a very different way. And so I just, want you guys to see the connections that I'm making and how salt, the reason why Dr. Pill and all the other doctors attack the salt, because salt would take away, if people understood the power of salt and the power of their symptoms, it would take away every single revenue stream from the system. But here's the thing. What is their saving grace? What is saving the medical holistic system? Not for people, because if healing was easy, they wouldn't have the medical holistic system. But the fact that pain is so intense for some people when they go through a healing process, and it changes their behaviors, it changes their lifestyle, it changes, even what they focus on. And if they're all about making money and they're all about being in a specific way and their distractions, and they're already taught their friends and family that this is who they are and they can't change, the medical holistic system knows this. And so they will keep keeping you in a cured state until you can't sustain that anymore. So that's their saving grace, is the fact that they know that their clients have a very hard time changing their lifestyle, their belief systems, and even their behaviors. And so all I could do is catch those that are not going down that path or don't have a lot to lose, who don't feel like they need to sustain that social standing, that they can afford to buck the system, so to speak. I can afford to buck the system. It took me a minute. I mean, I really had to pay my dues to buck the system, but I can afford to do that. Not many people can afford to buck the system the way I'm doing it. But you can. I mean, people do it. I have people in my Daily Juice crowd that are doing it. But they also know what it takes, and they have the support of their family. Maybe not their friends, but they have support of either one person in their life that they depend on, who depends on them. And that right there is key. If you have a shitty support system, forget it. But if you have cultivated your community to, to know that, to accept that you have changed your lifestyle, you changed your belief system, you're not who you were anymore, now you're somebody different, you have the freedom to change. But some of you have painted yourself so tight in a box that you don't have the freedom to move anywhere except for the directions that were given to you and that you set up for yourself before you knew this information. And you have the ability to change it, but most likely not everyone's going to, because it is comfortable when you're in a cured state of decline, because at least you know what to expect. All right, goodbye.